Welcome to Breaking Barriers. You know your path. We know the obstacles, and we can teach you how to tear them down. And now your host, CEO and founder of Adapting Social, John Vigero.
All right, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Breaking Barriers. Today, I don't know what's going to happen today. Anytime I'm with Tyler, who's a personal friend, things get a little crazy. So I'm excited. Tyler is actually somebody who has been in the real estate game for at least, I met you and James, oh my God, like in my Red Bank office. So I met you
5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah, for the first time. And, I'm sure you've been doing real estate stuff before that.
Yeah.
But that's just when I met you. Tyler's a flipper, a real estate investor. So I'm super excited to have you on here right now in the world of, just investments. When you see people like crypto super popular, there's a lot of things.
Totally.
And now in the world of like being an investor, it's like super sexy, right? Like you see younger kids who want to do it. What made you first and foremost get into real estate to start? Because I know you're an agent first, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So why real estate?
So real estate was interesting. It was, it all started out, I actually had a bartending gig down in downtown Toms River, New Jersey.
Okay.
And I'd see this guy that came in all the time. He'd be throwing $100 bills on the bar, buying everyone shots and drinks. And that lifestyle was just like kind of alluring to me.
Is this guy going to start coming out?
Yeah, he should come out with us. And I was allured to the lifestyle. I mean, he was making a lot of money, clearly. He just seemed like he had this lavish, fun, easygoing lifestyle. And I asked him what he did, and it turned out he was in real estate, and he said he would sponsor me to get my license. So it was like, boom. If this guy's living like this, I'm going to live just like this guy. I'm going to get my real estate license.
Right.
And that's how I kind of, fell into it. I tried to jump right in, but also bartend at the same time. And real estate's one of those things where there's a lot of people that work part-time, but it's hard to do. Totally. So that was really challenging for my first couple of years. I worked in a small brokerage. I learned a lot because I was kind of just tossed into the fire and had to find everything out for myself.
Right.
So it definitely was an interesting experience. And then, come 2 years down the road, having my license, I met you.
Right.
I was a little bit more familiar with the business at that point. And that's when I first started getting into the flipping game.
Now, Remax was where you first hung your license?
No. So I held my license at a small boutique agency.
Okay, so you went smaller first.
Yeah, it was real small. There was, I think, like 5 of us in there.
Right.
Like 3 people shared one desk, and we were all in there every day. And it was a weird little office, but it was really cool. Like I said, I learned a lot.
Personal touch.
Yeah, it was personal touch. Everyone was working right side by side with one another, so you're listening to other people's phone calls and kind of picking tips and tricks from them.
Right.
So it was really cool.
So do you recommend that? I love the thought that, like, a lot of times I hear when people are just starting in real estate, especially around here.
Yeah.
What are the 2 brokers you think of are like entry point for real estate? Like that, and when you think of entry points?
Remax, Keller Williams, EXP.
So I'm saying but when I hear like somebody's just getting their license, I feel like the draft kings of real estate are Weichert and Crossroads.
Yeah.
Anytime I have new people come in, they're like the draft kings. It's like they always have fucking people that like are just getting into it in the beginning.
But you never fucking win.
No, but they always wind up leaving, it seems like. But okay, so that's cool. So I love that you said that, and also just for anybody out there in any sort of career phase that you're in. But one of the biggest things, though, guys, that I want to unpack that Tyler just said, though, was that when you start off in a smaller company, there's such a different level of personal touch because you're not just another number, right? Even though you're sharing a desk with 10 people or 3 people and you're listening to all these different things, there's so much value you extract from that and other people's styles. Whereas when you're in a bigger corporate company, it's a lot harder to get that personal touch.
Totally. And I got to mentor under the head broker there. So he's been in the business for like 30-something years, had hundreds of millions of dollars in sales.
Right.
So it was kind of cool that, every deal he had, he brought everyone else in the office on. So you were constantly learning. And I mean, that was definitely pivotal to learning a lot of the stuff that I know now. I mean, I've learned things from both brokerages, from Remax, where I shifted after, and that brokerage. But I mean, I learned such a good foundation of information from that first brokerage.
Wow, let's go. So okay, so small is a great starting point. So all right, so now boom, you went there.
Depends what you're asking.
So you start there, right? And now you're moving along, obviously, in your journey in real estate. So obviously you leave there.
Yeah.
You went to Remax, right? I'm assuming.
Totally.
Okay. What got you into starting to flip or to get into that game or rehabs and things like that?
So going back a little bit, I did some construction jobs, and I was like 17 years old. I just wanted to find a way to make some quick, good money.
Right.
And I had a friend whose uncle owned a contracting business. So I said, you know what? let me just see if I can approach this guy, see if he'd give me a job, see, if I can, A, enjoy it, and see if, B, I even was able to do half of this stuff, because I had no idea how to swing a hammer at that point. Like, I was just, 17 years old, just trying to figure out how to make some money.
Right.
So I started working for this guy. He gave me a job, and I was actually pretty good. Like, I mean, it was, like spackling, hanging, like, ridiculous stuff that, like mold, like crown molding and all. I don't know why he let me do half of this stuff that he did, because I had no idea what the fuck I was doing.
Right.
But he just let me like do everything, and I happened to learn everything. That was really a good experience, because I definitely fucked up a lot, but I learned so much. I learned how to lay tile. I learned how to cut molding, spackle, sheetrock, and so it was Can
you put up walls too?
Dude, I could put up walls.
Dude, so for those, I'm a partner in another venture with Tyler, and I've actually seen how actual knowledgeable and handy you are. So that's cool. I didn't know you started doing that stuff when you were 17.
Yeah, I was really young, and it definitely helped. And I think the enjoyment even came like growing up with my father, honestly, and like we would build decks and stuff, because my father was always very handy around the house. I mean, even now he still is. He doesn't get around as good, but he's still pretty handy. And so that kind of, I guess, helped my enjoyment level with the construction work.
So okay, so let's unpack still. So now, like when you're thinking about it, like now, I always love to ask that question where it's like, so your dad is somebody who's super handy then.
Totally. Oh yeah. He can fix anything.
So your journey started like even a little bit earlier. Like you just did way more things at 17.
Yeah, I think like subliminally it like got me to enjoy working with my hands more.
Yeah.
But I didn't really understand that till later down the road.
Wow. Yeah. That's fucking interesting, dude.
Yeah.
So okay, so that's cool. And again, I think a lot of us don't realize that like there are so many things we're preconditioned to as kids. So like we don't understand how it impacts us like when we're adults. Like for me, like I can get up on stage and speak to a fucking million people, and I'm fine, right? And when I look at my parents, like at first it was hard to me to extract like who that came from, because my mom's a loudmouth, which I love her to death, and my dad's a little chatty Cathy too. So after the fact, I'm like, wait a second, I'm like, this is where I got that from.
Yeah, totally.
Because they're always talking, they're always doing whatever. And it's so interesting to look at your family dynamic and what preconditions you have from who your parents are, or who is in your family, whether you have a sibling or whatever that's like a loud or a shy or whatever. So it's so fucking interesting that like, again, you kind of already had like the building blocks of like, you were building decks, how to put like the screws in the wood, align a foundation. Like, it's a lot of shit that, first off, I never did.
Yeah, you know how to
as
talk,
as you know how to work. But sorry, so obviously now you're in the flip game, you learn all that stuff. What's some moments that like in the flip game for you that were like hard financial wise? Because here's the thing, right? A lot of people that I see, because there's so many people, I think we can all attest to this.
Yeah.
There are so many fucking people out there on Instagram or TikTok that are flippers.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, but for the people out there who are like, damn, like I wish I could do that, or maybe like I want to do a deal with Ty, trademark, do a deal with Ty. But it's like, how do you get the money, right? I think that's the biggest question that people like always beat around the bush with. It's like, how the fuck do you get the money to become an investor like that?
Yes.
Or a flipper?
So that actually kind of goes back to your last question. So fast forward to when I had met you in real estate, I was actually dating this girl, an ex-girlfriend of mine, and her family, I came from a family that was so poor when my parents divorced. My mother rented an apartment, the only apartment she could afford, and it had a floor that was slanted that I would ride my toy cars down because I was a kid, and I mean, that was like the coolest feature in the house.
Make the best of it.
We couldn't even boil water on the pots. The floor was so slanted. And anyway, so we didn't have any money, long story short. I mean, I came from nothing. So like people that had money to buy a house in cash was like, I couldn't even fathom that idea. Yeah. It was really bizarre. Yeah. So, obviously I'd met some people with money. I really wasn't doing super well at the time for myself. I had switched brokerages, met you, and I was dating this girl at the time. Her family was pretty well to do. They had a plastic company. They produced like pharmaceutical grade gaskets, hosing, different things of that nature. And to fast forward even more, we broke up. Her aunt and uncle called me like 2 days later, and they said, Tyler, we still love you. We still want to like do business with you. We're trying to figure out a way we could do some business together. And we thought, the way you renovated her old apartment would be a great way to apply that to like the flipping business. And they said, and the natural progression kind of was like, I had the construction background. I had the real estate background, so why not put them together?
Yeah.
So I did my first deal with them. It was a total fucking disaster. I thought I knew a lot more than I did.
Wow.
Because I mean, it's like you know how to do certain things around the house, like hang sheetrock, do electrical, do some plumbing stuff. But like putting a whole house together there's a lot of stuff you don't realize that actually goes into it.
Right.
And there's so many facets to it. It's like there's the budgeting portion, there's the buying the property right. I mean, and like the majority of the deal that you're making, the profit you're making is from buying the property right.
Right.
So, you know, if you don't buy it right and then you don't know how to do the construction, the whole deal's a fucking disaster. So anyway, so that's, I guess, what I learned a lot was then, you know, okay, we have to figure out how to budget because we were running out of money quick.
Okay.
I had these investors that were my ex-girlfriend's family. That was my only relationship to them. So I had to answer to them all the time and let them know that, you know, hey, it's just me and one other guy. It's taking a little bit longer. And by the way, like I need like $10,000 more. And it was definitely uncomfortable. We got in a lot of arguments, you know, and it was it wasn't that we were mad at each other, just mad that the process wasn't going how everyone anticipated it.
Right.
And everything is like expectations in business, and we had no expectations that were met. And eventually wound up selling it like a year and a half later.
Right.
And we actually made like $34,000.
So you made money though.
So we made money.
Good.
But I mean, it took a year and a half, which is insanely long in the industry of flipping.
Yeah. Well, holding costs.
Totally.
But so okay, so wow, so now what? So okay, yeah.
Oh, so I guess that's we got on a tangent, but so that segues me to money. So there's a lot of different ways people talk about how you can fund these deals.
Right, how you get the money for the deal.
So there's a couple different ways. I mean, family and friends, I think, are the best way to go right away because you don't have any expectations.
Right.
They're usually lenient on loan terms, and you usually have someone in the family, whether it's a rich uncle or someone that has the ability to give you money.
Right.
And there's a lot of different ways too. You know, people can take what's called the HELOC loan or a home equity line of credit against their property. So if they have a house where they have $500K, they could borrow against the house and lend you some money.
Right.
At a 3% rate, and that's typically what we do is we find people that have, you know, either liquid cash or a lot of equity in their house, and they borrow against it at 3%. We pay them 10% back on their money, so they're making profit off of money that they just had invested in their house that wasn't doing anything.
Right.
And that's probably the best way to get started, I would say, is just family and friends.
So now let's dig a little bit deeper there. So for people who are watching, they're like, well, I don't have any family and friends that are wealthy. I don't know anybody. Is there any institutional ways that you go? Yeah,
so there's, not me personally, because again, I have good rates worked out, but yeah, hard money exactly is probably like the biggest way a lot of people flip. So if you don't have any family, any friends or anything, hard money, which is essentially borrowing.
Yeah, what does that mean? What does that mean?
Yeah, sure. So you're borrowing from an institution still, essentially, but it's a little bit more riskier loan. So they basically lend to anyone where the deal looks good and you have halfway decent credit. You don't have to have really much money in the bank. I've actually had friends that didn't even have the money to put down as a down payment for the hard money loans that would borrow that as a private loan from a bank. They'd go say, I have, you know, great credit. I make $20,000 a year. Right. You know, can you give me a $10,000 loan so I can go in and borrow the money from, you know, borrowing essentially from Peter to pay Paul, you know?
Right.
And so they would have that money borrowed from a private loan to have the deposit paid.
Wow.
And that's basically how a lot of people do it. Like, you know, people
to get started or...
Yeah, to get started, to really get into it, and you don't have any of those other family members or anyone that could lend you the money themselves.
Right.
So hard money too, just to kind of throw it out there. There are different terms though with hard money. So private money is beautiful, but hard money, they charge you origination fees. They want you to pay monthly on the deal too. So again, if you don't have the money to carry the property paying, it's essentially a short-term mortgage they're giving you. Yeah. Then it's something that's really hard to maintain as well.
Right. So what is it like? What's it a ballpark origination fee? Like, is that like $1,000? Is it like 10 grand?
I don't. So I've never done hard money.
Oh, okay.
But I know a lot of people that have. It's like the total fees before you even get into the property from the bank are like $7,000 to $10,000.
Wow.
So if you're doing, you know, a deal where it's only $100,000 to purchase, $50K to renovate, and you're making only $50K when you're done. I mean, that's a huge percentage. That's 20% of your deal that you're giving to the bank.
Totally.
Before you even break ground.
Totally. Wow. So. That's fucking crazy. So and anybody that's watching this, listening in, I definitely feel free to fire away questions because we're definitely gonna have Tyler back on, obviously in the future. But it's so interesting because I think when you look at a lot of people who just make moves, right, in terms of like financial, people who create wealth, it's always typically in real estate. Now, in your strategy, at least from what I've seen, you're typically you typically don't hold right now as a strategy, right? So is that something you want to get into eventually, or are you right now just like you love the flip game and like that's where you want to stay?
So flipping's definitely the passion for sure. Like I love flipping, but I do also what's called wholesaling, where we're buying from buyer A for I don't know $100,000. Right. And I know end buyer C would pay $150,000 for the property. So I buy it for $100,000. I tack on a $30,000 fee. So buyer C is getting it at a discounted rate. So they're still making money on that acquisition.
Right.
But I'm making that extra $30,000 between the two prices.
Which is beautiful.
And it takes like 5 days to do. It's great. I kind of like fell into it. I had a guy who wanted me to list his property.
Right.
And said, you know, I think I would take like $235,000 for that. I said, I'll give you $230 cash today. And I knew the lot was worth $300,000. So I fell into it. And I signed I literally ran to my office, printed out a contract, ran back. We signed everything up. I gave him a deposit, and like 5 days later, I sold the thing. I made like $65,000.
Wow.
And it was the most amount of money in the quickest amount of time I've ever made. I'm like, this is pretty fucking cool. Like, I got to do this more.
So now, when it comes to so the money part. So now getting into finding the right deals, right? Because I've also heard nightmare stories, right? So I actually so wait, hold on. So time out. So I want to actually break down real quick before we move on. So in your nightmare story of the first flip of your ex-girlfriend's family, shout out to Lauren. But
she's gonna kill me.
Yeah, and in that situation though, like unpacking that, like what is like so you had to keep spending money, so that was a part of the nightmare.
Totally.
There were so many things you kept finding out that were wrong with the house.
Yeah.
So you had to keep investing, obviously. So it's time, it's money.
Absolutely.
Did anything else pop up that we're missing here?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do an inspection.
I'm sure stress.
Yeah, there's everything. I mean, again, time was a huge factor. Money, holding costs. Like people don't realize, like, you know, I'm buying this house for $100,000. I put $50K in. I could sell it for $200. I think they're making $50,000 profit a lot of times going in, but don't realize you're paying taxes, insurances, utilities.
You're holding.
There was an HOA, and then you have real estate fees, closing fees, and all. So that $50,000 profit, a lot of people think they have is like $15,000 once you add up all those fees.
Everything. So wait, so time out. So now I want to know what Tyler today, sitting here in the flesh, if you could go back, would you take that same deal, or what would you have done differently with that first deal?
Sure, yeah. So I would have definitely set expectations for sure. Again, expectations are everything in business.
Yeah.
We had semi-expectations. I said, I think it'll cost us $25K to renovate this house. We'll probably make $65K on this deal. And when in reality, it cost us, I think, like $57,000.
Right.
I mean, fortunately, the market appreciated and properties appreciated in value, and that's the only thing that saved me.
Wow.
If that didn't happen, I probably wouldn't have made $1. We probably would have been red.
Wow.
I definitely would have done that. I would have done more due diligence because, like, you need a foundation for everything. Ty Lopez, I'm sure you've heard of, and I'm not a huge fan of him, but he said knowledge, strategy, execution is how you should do everything, and I kind of like live by that now.
Totally,
too.
That's a good way. Yeah, that's good principles.
And so I had the knowledge, but I had no strategy, and I poorly executed everything. And you can't do them if they're not sequentially in that order.
Right. Wow. So okay, cool. So out of expectations, you would have still done the deal again, though.
I would have done the deal. I would have just done more due diligence and had a better strategy in place.
Got it.
A lot of it was just hiring the wrong people, not shopping quotes, not figuring out my timeline. The timeline ate the biggest part of the budget away. Holding a property for a year and a half. It's a long amount of time. I mean, when we're doing deals where we close in 2 months, we buy it and then close on it again in 2 months.
Like, boom, right away. Yeah. So, all right, I want to segue now. So,
go ahead.
Let's talk about, so again, from knowing you personally, very, very intimately.
How intimate? Can we talk about that for a second?
So, Tyler almost left me to die on my boat one day. But we won't go there. No, I'm kidding. But one of the things I want to talk about is, like, I feel like you have a very good sense of, like, I don't think of a balance in anywhere in life. I don't think a balance exists, right? Because there's always one tipping the scale, right? Which doesn't make a balance, right? It's so hard to find that or create that. So I like the thought process of a harmony between work and life and fun. And
totally.
I typically, like, when I see you, like, again, like, you're typically always doing different things, whether it's like you're going to different restaurants and trying different foods, or you're going to different places and you like to travel and stuff. So for you, what's like the thought process in like what you're doing for work and working hard versus like integrating the both of them and making that harmony? Like, do you have a philosophy in your head about those two things?
I don't really have a philosophy. I just, more or less, life is all about balance, and it's something I guess I didn't even realize till the past, 5 years that, you need balance in life. I always thought if I work harder
but
and
I
work
don't
smarter.
think I don't think balance exists though.
It doesn't, but you try to balance as best you can.
Right.
I mean, I always thought, like I said, working harder and smarter was going to just make me that much more successful, but you don't realize how fast you burn out, and mental health is fucking massive.
Fucking everything.
I mean, when you're not in a good mental state, you don't negotiate deals well.
Right.
You have no motivation to continue to work.
Right.
I mean, mental state is everything.
Totally.
And so with that balance, I mean, it's totally nice to have a refresher to go away. Even if it's a staycation, you're just going. I'll take a week off and surf or go to the beach, take the jet ski out, anything. I mean,
Right.
it doesn't have to be financially a big vacation. Just something to kind of clear the whole psyche because
Yeah.
I mean. It's a disaster if you try to get into a project, especially in this game where time is everything and you can't even focus because your mental state is just totally shot.
Right. And
So-
and so okay, so you try to you said you try to find the balance the best way you can, right? So it's not
Totally.
perfect.
Yeah.
But for you it's just like you try to find that balance.
Yeah, I mean, I make it a conscious effort too.
Yeah.
Like my girlfriend and I always make it an effort to try and at least do dinner out once a week.
Right.
And have that balance of seeing my family at least once a week. And again, it's as best you can, because in the business I'm in, and just like your business, you never know what kind of shitstorm is going to be thrown your way. And you might be changing fucking plumbing on a houseboat at 7:00 at night. I mean,
Right.
You don't know. So it's like, it's literally as best you can. You just make a conscious effort to always have that balance. And it's never going to be perfect, like you said.
No. And I think that's, I think so. And mine, when I first was getting started in business, my thought process on working and hard work was always like, you gotta work your fucking ass off. Sleep when you're dead. I was such a, I just was a product of reading books of people like Tony Robbins and people that were really high performing, influencers or personal development people that
Totally.
believed at that time when I was reading those things that people who become successful are people who work their fucking ass off.
Yeah.
And don't let anything affect what they're supposed to be doing or what they should be doing.
Yeah.
Because everything else is fucking stupid excuses, right? So I grew up thinking that way from 17 when starting on.
Big mistake.
And I grew up that way, right? And then as I've been getting older and older, the funniest part is it's you need sleep.
Yeah.
You fucking need sleep, right?
Whether it's from carbon monoxide on a boat or
So, but when you think about it, though, I also want to dive a little bit deeper, though, because I think that there's a different level, right? I think that when you're first starting, or if you're in a building process, right?
Yeah.
Which I think somebody should always be building, but in the foundational part of building,
For sure.
right? I think there has to be that level of hunger, and also if I go back to the days of being in my parents' basement and going door knocking, fucking in the winter time all through
Yeah.
Bricktown, at the end of the day, the things, I was so incredibly passionate that I didn't give a fuck that I was doing it. It was hard work and I was trying to get everything going, but I didn't give a fuck because I didn't know any better, right?
Yeah.
I was hungry enough and foolish enough that I was foolish enough not to be like, John, you've been doing this for 3 hours today. Your hands are fucking freezing.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna work with you today. Just go back home.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. I was like, no, I'm closer to the next sale. I'm
Knuckles
closer to
bleeding.
The next, right. I'm closer to the next fucking deal. Let's go. And I think at the end of the day, though, again, as I've gotten older, right? I started at 17, and now I'm 30. And it's it's
I heard to say, I saw that.
I was like, oh, I don't want to say, I'm 29 and a half. But it's at 30 years old, I think that when you're saying working smarter and in the beginning, I think there has to be a level of harder, but now it's just working smarter is different, right?
Yeah.
And it's for instance, I would also, another thing, right? I'm really pushing this year, hard fucking core. I'm going to say it again, is when you look at self-help, right? And this is what changed my mind.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like Tony Robbins anymore. I thought
Yeah.
I did when I was younger, and I love principles from Tony Robbins.
For sure.
I used to be obsessed with Steve Jobs, right? What he does. I still have principles of those people that I like and that I really cherish and want to be like. But at the end of the day, when I look at Tony Robbins wakes up at a crazy hour and in the morning, and he jumps and plunges in a fucking cold pool to get himself going. And I would do that stuff in the morning where I would take a cold shower, do this, that, whatever.
For sure.
And for years and years, I'm I'm doing the right thing, But it's everybody is different. The way that
Yeah.
you want to do things and the way I want to do things, a partner of the other company, Commodity, that I'm working on right now, we had a 7:30 a.m. drill because we have a huge presentation tomorrow. And the one guy, Dylan, who's the founder, was he's like, dude, I'm not an early bird. I'm a night guy. I'm up all night. So it was like tough for him to wake up. But it's like people like that, like we think because there's somebody in the world that is super successful and they wake up super early that we should be doing that to make us successful.
Yeah.
But that's not the case all the time, right?
It works for people too. The way I like feel business progression should go. Like I obviously know, like I started trying to get my pilot's license. So
yeah.
I actually heard a great analogy about like business and life and pilots, which is kind of cool. So it's applicable to this. Is that like flying a jetliner, for example? They use like 40% of their fuel just for takeoff.
Oh wow, I didn't even know that.
So yeah, because it's such a heavy plane, to get that plane off the ground at full speed, they use 40% of their fuel to take off.
Right.
And then the majority of the rest of the fuel is over that long span of the journey.
Wow.
And that's kind of like how I figure business now too, is, when you're starting off, you have to use like 40% of your energy, just grind out, build a foundation.
Let's go. I like that fucking, I like that. That's fucking absolute fire.
And then coast, baby.
I wish I still had my fucking air horn that I used to use in these things. But one of the biggest things though, like with that being said though, I think that's such a great analogy.
Yeah.
But what I was alluding to is that like everybody's different, people's body works differently. Totally. And I think what started to shift my mind last year was when I read like what I watched an interview for Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And they were like, so like, what time do you wake up? And like, 'cause he has all these different companies and he's trying to change the world. Dude.
Yeah.
Like go to space. He's making zero emission cars. Shout out to Tesla. Let's go, baby.
Let's go.
And it's like, it's like he's doing all these things. And like when he was interviewed, they're like, how do you sleep? He's like, no, I get like 6-7 hours of sleep. It's like, he's like, it works
He's
for
a
me.
fucking alien.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But he goes, but what he said to me is what fucking resonated. He goes, no, it works for me. All I need is, he goes, I don't need more than 6 hours. He goes, I used to not sleep. He's like, but I realized how important sleep was. He goes, but now, I go to bed at a normal time. I wake up at a normal time. And then I also heard Jeff Bezos say something like, yeah, I think he wakes up at like 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, it's like you think somebody who's doing that, running the fucking planet, is like somebody who's up at 3 a.m. fucking, in the gym doing this, cooking or like getting something cooked for him, like planning to take over the day and then going to bed like late. But like, it's like what works for your body works for your body. And that's my whole thing. I'm pushing. It's my campaign right now. It's my political trail where I'm like, this year I'm really focused on doing things to test out what works best for my body. So for the first time in like a long time, I'm not waking up at 5 a.m. and going to work out and doing this and shit like that. I'm waking up at like 6:37. And like I feel so better rested. And then I'm working out and I'm doing my own types of workouts. Because like I've realized like I've always wanted to be in the gym and like for a long time in my life, I would work out.
Yeah.
And now I realize I don't want to work out. So what I do is I'm doing boxing right now.
I love it.
And I have fun with it. I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder. I don't want to be fat. I want to be in shape.
Yeah.
But I'm having fun with boxing, right? So as long as I'm moving, so I'm trying new things like that.
And I think that's like the key too, is like you said it perfectly. It's all about enjoyment.
Yeah.
I mean, no one wants to stand on, at least I don't know anyone that wants to stand on a treadmill and run for 60 minutes. I'd have much more fun throwing some punches, ducking around.
Totally.
And, it's definitely something I actually am also trying to apply. It's tough though, because it's a transition. Like we're mentally programmed to kind of do, especially, as like a serial entrepreneur, following Tony Robbins, all these guys, to just work as hard as you can, get up at 5 a.m. and just push through it till 10 o'clock at night. And life shouldn't be like that. I mean, you have to enjoy life. And that's what I'm starting to realize, and why I take more time off. I have the dinners out, I end my day specifically at, 6 o'clock. So I don't, Oh, are you going to take me? I don't know if I can afford the Noble bills.
I owe you now. But you know what? I think you said something really good there, though. And I think that, like, at the end of the day, just to move on from this topic, let's see how we're doing here. Just move on from this topic, though. I think that, like, when you look at it and you really, like, I think what I'm alluding to was I got on this topic because, like, at the end of the day, like, you really fucking, like, have... Again, like people who follow you on social media that don't know you, see you kind of like doing things, having fun, whatever. You're making moves in the back end. I think the cool part about what I like about what you're doing, because you're in the real estate game, which causes you having to be in a physical place, right, for your deals, right, technically, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially for the flips, not the wholesales.
Yeah.
But what I loved is like when you went out to my birthday in Fort Lauderdale, or when we were, when you were in Aruba. Like, there's always different big portions. I always see you with your fucking AirPods in. You're on phone calls. You're doing deals. And what I think that more people need to understand is, like, is that like you can do those types of things and like still live your lifestyle the way you want to, right? Because like you were
absolutely
the second you got to Florida, when you got there, you went under that tiki hut for like a little while, and then you popped on the phone real quick, right? And you started doing whatever you were doing. And I think like I don't know, a lot of people probably don't know who this guy is, but have you ever heard of Timothy Sykes? He's like an investor dude.
No, I'm not familiar.
But like he is like super gung ho about this, where he's like he'll go and like he'll rent a yacht, and he'll be like he'll bring his whole team with him. And they'll literally just be working remotely in the Caribbean, like he's like, all right, it's stock, the trading floor starts now, boom. And they're all going, they're having fun, doing whatever. And then at like 3, 4 o'clock, they just stop and they just go have fun.
Totally.
And it's like shit like that, I think, is like where the world wants to go.
100%,
right?
especially in sales, where sales is like so mentally draining. I remember there was beach cabanas that were literally up the block, if you don't know. Obviously, I live at the beach.
Yeah.
And I would walk up to the beach cabanas and bring
my
computer. In Seaside.
Okay. Right.
Throw a hotspot on.
Right.
And I would go to town on calls. I'd start cold calling people. And it was like, you get crushed on a deal. Who gives a fuck? You're sitting on the beach in the sun with the ocean right there in front of you. It's like your mental psyche, you couldn't get destroyed by anyone not closing.
Totally. And honestly, you know what? I found that like I almost feel so much more productive when I'm on the go.
Totally.
Like this is why it's so interesting with like having like we shut down our Asbury office during COVID, and then popped this little Point Pleasant Timmy out.
I like this.
And it's like, but it's like, because again, like people don't want to be in the fucking office, really. There's a couple of people like I like to be in person and meet people and have those combos in person. But if I'm like normally in a flow state, I want to go meet a client. I want to go to their place. I want to go around, like right. Like I'm an animal that likes to move around, right?
Yeah.
Which is probably why I moved 3 or 4 times. But all right, let's like going down to the last segment, right? So like, what's in store for you? And what's your game plan over the next, like, let's call it, year, right? Year to 2 years. Like, what's in the Sargent world for the next 2 to 3 years that you want to be doing?
So there's a lot of things. I mean, I definitely want to expand now more in this wholesaling business where we're, flipping the contracts versus the properties. It's really cool. Like, I was down in Aruba and we flipped the contract while I was in Aruba. I mean, I didn't have to be involved at all other than a FaceTime call, and I was able to flip a contract. So I want to do more of those. I definitely, as you know, I love hoarder flips.
Totally.
So I want to find a couple more. I have one that I'm going to bring you to this week.
Oh, I like it.
And, make sure you bring your respirator.
I'm ready to go.
That's really it, man. I just want to like build my business and enjoy my life.
Yeah.
I think I've gotten to a point where.
You said you were going to get engaged this year?
No, easy. We're going to have to edit that out.
There's like a black hole in our conversation.
So anyway, I don't know. That's just it, man. Just enjoy my life, but build my business. And it's like you said, the whole mental health thing. Like, I just want to relax, travel, see the world, but also flourish in business. And I think they kind of go hand in hand.
Right.
So that's really cool.
So I like that. And the last segment. So because Tyler, I did. Something that I didn't want to do, but I did anyway because I was trying to give Tyler a little bit more insight to what was going to be said here. I did give him the grave plot thing, so I'm not going to ask you that. I'm actually going to switch. So this is where we zoom in on you.
I should have known better.
So what would you say is there some sort of quote that you have that like you really resonate with, or an adage? And I'm going to say it can't be a tattoo on you. So is there a quote that you have
I'm out then.
over the years that like just really resonated with you? Besides his favorite one is live, laugh, love, but we're not going to say that one right now.
No. I have it all plastered all over my whole fucking house. Actually, it's funny. So on the ride here, I was actually thinking about this in preparation for some of the questions you might ask me. And in high school, our yearbook quote, I was obsessed with surfing in high school, and I just, now I don't have time to do it as much, and I'm trying to get back to that time. But long story short, Kelly Slater, who's one of the best surfers in the world, had a quote that he had said in an interview, "It's all where your mind's at." And that was my yearbook quote. And like now more so than ever, it resonates with me. Like, it's all about where your mind's at. Your mental psyche, like we said, is 100% everything in life. It's business, it's relationships, it's family. It's literally all about where your mind's at.
Right. I love that, dude. That's actually a good point. And that's an investment, though, right? It takes work. And I think one of the things that people don't do enough or don't understand enough is the fact that, like, if I said to you right now, if I'm like, Tyler, how do I get bigger biceps? What would you tell me to do?
Go to the gym.
Easy, right? It's like that's an easy answer. If I was like, yo, Tyler, I'm feeling depressed or I'm feeling like whatever, what would you tell me to do?
Take some pills.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's like, but like, again,
don't do drugs, kids.
But that's the equivalency of like, oh, we'll just take steroids.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, listen, obviously there's different mental health things, and like I had really bad anxiety disorder growing up, and I took the holistic route a couple of years ago, and I think the biggest thing for me though is like I never understood the power of our fucking thoughts and the power of like just our subconscious and like what they actually manifest in your life.
Yeah.
Because in your head, when you're thinking negatively about shit, you know, whether it's depression or whether it's anxious, it's like, you know, I would get to such crazy anxious states that like I couldn't understand it. If I was explaining it to you or somebody, they wouldn't make sense of it. And, you know, I understood how powerful my mind was when it wasn't working for me.
Yeah.
And then I understood like, wait, if I'm gonna go get in shape at the gym, you know, or if I wanna get in shape, I gotta go to the gym and work out. But the one thing that I think you and I know, and anybody else who, you know, works out pretty consistently, you know, is the first day you try to change your body and you go to the gym, you could be there for an hour, 2 hours, you don't see any difference.
Not at all.
Then you go day 2, you still don't see any difference. Then you go day 3, and it's not until like weeks that you start to actually see different things.
Absolutely.
But it takes you eating the right food. It takes you working your ass out. It takes you doing what you got to do cardio. But the whole point is with mental health, we want it to be fixed now.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I learned from my therapist when I eventually made the jump after being like that for over 15 years of my life, from a kid up until when I was like, actually no, way more than that, probably like almost like 20 years of my life, where I went to go see somebody and he's like, why are you so hard on yourself? You're not supposed to be 100% okay tomorrow.
Absolutely.
You know, you need to recover, and you need to also change your behaviors.
Yeah.
Like your when you feel anxious, because mine was just random anxiety disorder. So if I was, like, let's just say for instance, back like 5-6 years ago, if I was having anxiety right now and we were sitting here, like I was good at managing it, so you wouldn't know that I was anxious, right? But
Totally.
the way that he gave me an analogy for it was like you're a duck on a calm lake, paddling like hell underneath the water, and nobody knew. But then next time I was gonna come back here again, I would be thinking in my head like, oh my god, I'm having an anxiety attack, and I would be worried the whole time.
Yeah.
Right? And I think progressively, you know, the thing that he gave me that the strength to do, and I just want to get that out there to everybody listening, is that like don't put so much pressure on yourself when it comes to mental health, because you're right, it's so important.
Totally.
I had so many years of my life, especially in my personal life and in business, which were always been one, that like I was so fucking anxious, and like it ruined my days, like all the time. I was in a fucking cage, and it wasn't until I finally sought out help and then gave myself the space and time to just fucking get out of my own head and understand that like I'm not supposed to, like I had behavioral issues with anxiety, and I had these things that I trained my brain to do, but I had to give myself the time and space, just like when you go to the gym and you start to eat healthy. So I fucking love that you said that about mental health.
And to resonate off that too, is the whole thing of going to therapy. I think there's like a negative stigma going to therapy.
There is, you're right.
But you played sports in high school, right? And I played sports, and we always had a coach that kind of oversaw everything we were doing from an outside perspective.
I love where you're going with this.
It's basically what therapists is. They're just coaching your mental psyche.
You know what I called mine?
Coach.
My anxiety coach.
Yeah, I love
that's
it.
That's how in the beginning, that's how I got over it. And I'm ashamed of myself for thinking that was a problem to go see a therapist.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things
it's a problem not to, honestly.
It is, right? Fucking boom, from his lips to God's ears. But I think the biggest thing that everybody listening in needs to really, really just take into their own consideration is that, like, don't be afraid to go see somebody. Don't be afraid to, or don't think that there's anything wrong with going to see somebody, because there's fucking not. You know, it only does, you know, help, right? To your point, love you said coach, because if somebody can give you an outer perspective that's not stuck in the weeds, at the very least, you take their advice, and if you don't like it, you walk away, right?
100%.
Can't hurt you. But it helped me significantly, and I think that's a great way to put it. So anybody who's going through those trenches right now or going through tough times, you know, any of our listeners, our friends or family, if there's anybody that are friends or family that knows me that's going through shit in silent, because I think a lot of people do it in silent.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm here for you. Feel free to reach out to me. Don't feel embarrassed. I'm here for anybody. If you're sad or if you're whatever, it's okay. You know, like it's okay to be that way. I'm here to jump in and talk to you or do whatever we can do. But I think seeing somebody is always the best thing. And just ending that rant, you know, again, mental health is so important. So definitely take care of yourself first, right? It's almost like since you said airplane before, it's like that whole oxygen mask thing that comes down. They say put the mask on you first, because if you can't help yourself, you can't help anybody else. And you know,
I love that.
Let's go.
I love that.
Let's go.
I love
And
that.
when you think about that, right? It's like, you know, that's why it's so important to take care of your mental health and your physical body.
Absolutely.
You know, So, guys, everybody, thank you so much for taking the time to listen in today. Tyler, thank you for your time, brother.
Thank you, dude, for
You dropped
having
some
me.
great golden nuggets here. Where can people find you? This is where you plug yourself. Like social,
I
TikToks,
love
this,
it.
that, whatever. Like, where can they find you?
Well, you know I love my TikTok. So you can find me, Tyler Flips Homes, either on Instagram or TikTok.
Love it, love it. And listen, you know, if you go on TikTok, the one thing I can say is that Ty has some really cool, like, you walk them through the journey of these like rehabs and like these crazy hoarder houses. It's really good content. And also I think, again, there's a lot that you can learn from you if somebody who wants to, you know, get involved in real estate flipping or whatever. I do know that too. Like, I don't even know if you do this or not. But if somebody's like, oh wow, this is cool, I want to get involved in it, but I want to do a deal with Tyler. Is that even a thing?
Yeah, no, 100%. Even if you just have questions, feel free to shoot me a DM, a message. I mean, that's how I wish I learned, because I kind of learned trial by fire.
Yeah.
You know, and I wish I had a mentor throughout the process, because it would have astronomically scaled my business a lot quicker. So feel free to reach out.
Boom, let's go. Thank you guys for watching. Everybody out there, create an amazing day for yourself. You're in charge of it. And again, my whole campaign this year is trial and error things that you're doing, right? From waking up times to working out, things that you do to work out, you know, or whatever you do to better your mental health and your physical health. You know, things that, because everybody's body is different. So figure out what it is that your body needs and just get after it. Thanks, guys.